the City and County of San Francisco, we are proud to have a mayor that was very much for the LGBT community long before it was politically correct to do so. Very honored to have as our guest for the first time the mayor of the City and County of San Francisco, the Honorable Edwin M. Mr. Mayor, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, David, to 10% show. It's
thank
great.
you. You're very welcome. I remember when you became mayor, you were the first mayor that actually I'd ever called by his first name. I remember seeing you in the hall and saying, "Hi, Ed." I mean, Mr. Mayor, having known you as the city administrator. But I think a lot of people don't know that you've had a long career in city government. Just real quickly for our viewers, when did you first come to San Francisco, and what was your first job here?
Well, I came for law school in the mid-'70s, and then my first job was actually after litigating against the city for 2 or 3 years. Mayor Art Agnos hired me as the first city's whistleblower investigator. Mm-hmm. That was the Clean Government program that he initiated back in 1990. Then I became the director of the Human Rights Commission under his mayorship, and then became the purchaser when Willie Brown became mayor, and then I must have really got him mad at me because he gave me the hardest job in the world, being Director of Public Works, and then from there Gavin Newsom appointed me to city administrator.
How do you think your experience as an activist, an advocate, someone who's actually sued the city, has tempered your role as mayor now?
Well, first of all, I think my legal background really has been helpful because I can anticipate some legal problems that any of our departments would face, and probably cut the time down on using the legal resources by anticipating that. But I think the biggest contribution that I thought had was to appreciate that what I thought was wrong with government was really about the systems that they had rather than the people. Mm-hmm. When I began working in the city, I really discovered, some 20,000 people at that time, now it's over 30,000, that really wanted to do good for the city, but they were operating in old-fashioned systems, in traditions, and once we're able to unleash that and change it, as a department head, I had the privilege of doing that. I got people to really connect up with our communities a lot better, whether it was public works or city administrator, and now the privilege as mayor.
Mm-hmm. Does it bother you that our politics has become so personal? You were talking about the pride you take in fixing a system, because most of the people who work in any system want to do a good job. It's hard nowadays. I mean, you've taken your share of abuse. Anyone who runs for public office now seems to have more people saying you've done something wrong even before you've done something. Well,
I have to chalk that up as people being very passionate about a lot of issues in the city. And that's why San Francisco is such unique. That's why I still love it. I can never be negative about our city. And even the people that criticize me every day, God bless them. I want to listen, and I want to be able to act on it. And I'll filter through some of the anxiety and maybe some of the harsh words into what are people trying to say, because ultimately that's what I was taught. Way back even in Harvey Milk days and others, there was some brash language that was used, and people had to pierce through what are people really trying to do.
Yeah, protest isn't always polite.
That's right. That's right. And now we appreciate protest as part of our DNA, but we also kind of appreciate respect for groups of people and individuals who earn it every single day. And I try to do my best as the mayor, and I know that there's a lot of issues people want us to solve, and there's going to be long-term issues, as you know, but we're making great progress, and particularly the progress on behalf of our LGBT community, I'm particularly proud of.
Right. Well, as I said in the opening, you have long been a friend to the LGBT community, and San Francisco has long been that beacon of a city on a hill where a lot of us, including myself 30 years, came to feel free, but also respected for the lives we lead. Certainly a dark day for the LGBT community, and I imagine in any city, was a few months ago, the massacre in Orlando. And I remember hearing about what you were doing and people at City Hall. You actually met some of the people and spoke to the mayor of Orlando. What was that like for you, hearing that had happened?
Well, meeting Councilwoman Patty Sheehan for the first time and understanding her leadership in the aftermath, meeting Buddy Dwyer, the mayor of Orlando, and him walking through with me the things that they had to do to help recover, reminded me exactly what Senator Feinstein did when she was mayor and going through the murder of Harvey Milk and George Moscone. that we can identify with that as a city of consciousness. And for me to personally go out there and represent San Francisco, they were really glad to see us because I think we share in a little bit of that tragic history, but also in the love that we share with the people that we represent, the people that live in our cities, that enjoy the freedom of expression, life, of living out their lives. I think this is what I want to go for, and I found a lot of friends out there, a lot of welcoming audiences that really appreciated San Francisco being there at their moment of need.
Right. You know, I mean, being the mayor of any city, whether you have 5 people or 900,000, about like San Francisco does, it's a tough job. You're on the front lines every day. But San Francisco's special. Do you think San Francisco still represents something unique? I'll ask it 2 ways: to the LGBT community internationally, but also just to other cities around the country. And what is it that it represents?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've had our moments, whether it was how we responded and came together as a society with the AIDS epidemic, to marriage equality, to our symbolism and our activism and the procurement aspects to be a beacon of hope to people, whether it's in North Carolina or in Mississippi, and saying we're not going to take that. We're sitting down. We're going to celebrate this law that we have across the country, but we also have to change people's hearts and minds at the same time. Job's never done in the area of equality, and I'm glad that I have a city of people who love to be identified as a leader, but not just for ourselves. I think now we have a responsibility to be a beacon for other places in our country, if not around the world, and we get to do that every year with our pride, but we also get to do that when something happens. When the state legislation, as mean and nasty as what happened in North Carolina, we can respond with that and get people's attention, get the business attention. And now with the NBA removing their all-star game from there, and as well as our procurement policies, we're making a very strong statement to that state legislature that you can't just willy-nilly discriminate against people or prevent them from having access to some basic things. That's a privilege that we can do, and I'm always grateful that San Francisco will stand up for people who don't have that voice yet.
Right. And of course, as I'm sure you're aware, it's an election year. It's kind of a big one.
Oh, it is, huh? Yes.
You were involved with the Democratic platform on a national level. You know, every political junkie I know always says the same thing. Oh, platforms don't matter. You know, platforms don't matter. But they do to a lot of people. And I think especially the LGBT community, there may be a lot of people who don't understand just kind of how radically inclusive the platform of the Democratic Party is. And you were part of that.
I was privileged to be a part of it as one of the vice chairs. And in that meetings of 3 days, we were able to effectuate language that becomes the Democratic Party's platform that could literally be the platform of policy and practice for the next 8 to 10 years. And so I see it as very significant. And for us to be able to strengthen language around LGBTQ community, to make sure that transgendered populations were not left out, that was really the discussion of the country. And for us to put stronger language in there, protections for LGBT youth, was, I think, very significant. Now it's part of the policies and practice of the next Democratic president, which I hope will have the chance to implement.
Right. You know, to put on your prophecy hat here for a second, I mean, you're always very polite, but you're a political animal. What's going to happen in this election? What's your thoughts?
I predict that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will win. I think that her stance on keeping an open society, more than just tolerating but celebrating our diversity, just has people in my culture, as well as the diversity in San Francisco, excited. And of course, I think the San Francisco Bay Area is overwhelmingly for the Secretary. But across the country, I do believe that the message of intolerance, of building walls, of segregating people out for the differences is not going to be the message that America really represents. And I think that's now beginning to grow. You know, I know there's the Republican nominee is making every attempt to divide us into us and them. I just think that the better of ourselves should be represented through the President of the United States.
Right. Now, I know you've met Secretary Clinton.
Yes.
Have you ever met Donald Trump?
No, I have not. I have not met Mr. Trump, nor have I really visited his establishments.
Right, right. The other person that I know you've met, and correct me if this story is wrong, was I know you've met the president, President Obama.
Yes.
And the story went around, and I'd love to know if this is true, that you really did make the decision to serve as mayor when you went to the White House. Is that a true story?
Well, it was perhaps one of the considerations. Although I did have a little fun. I've always had fun when the president comes down on the SFO airport, and he's visited many times. I get the privilege as the mayor of being the first to meet him on the tarmac, and he got tired of me when I said, "Welcome to the World Series champion city candidate San Francisco," and he kept reminding me that he wasn't the Washington Nationals guy; he was more of a Cubs guy or Chicago. Yeah. But I've appreciated his leadership in the country. I've watched him very closely, his policies, particularly now with the conversations around the relationships of police departments across the country. We're following his lead and getting the Justice Department to oversee everything that we're doing to make sure we're doing it better and doing it right, and there's always room for improvement. But just his articulation of that we're a better country if we all collaborate, work together. He's tried as many times. I tried the same thing and have been successful in getting a collaborative spirit in the city, because we can oftentimes focus on problems and actually solve them. But we got some intractable challenges right now, whether it's homelessness, whether it's neighborhood crime, whether it's inequality that a lot of people face from all different backgrounds. But we're making headway, and I'm bridging that. And I'm trying to use my mayorship to bridge the business and tech community with the schools, with the low-income populations that they're usually next to, if not in the middle of, and trying to get the talents to cross each other in the spirit of what San Francisco really means for everyone.
Right. We've only got a couple minutes left. I'd like to ask you a two-part question to close, and that is, what was your best and worst day as mayor? Or even if you don't want to say as mayor, your best and worst day in San Francisco?
Well, I would say there's a lot of best days because I will be as happy when we see the numbers like the HIV new cases going down. I mean, because that's part of my DNA, part of the history. And, I will admit, I mean, the gay community was really, and what Harvey Milk did, opened up doors for people like me to actually become mayor. So I will freely admit that the tolerance of this city and everything that we do to represent how we're making advances in it make me happy. Whether it's a kid getting a scholarship, whether it's a navigation center opening up that's very different from the shelters, or whether we end discrimination in one area, but we discover what we have to do in other areas. That makes me happy. Saddest days are usually associated with tragedies, whether it's a murder, a capital incident, or some horrific natural causes that might hurt our city. Those are the ones that I really have to get people ready for. And again, because of our tolerance and celebration of diversity, people come together very quickly in this city. So we can generally overcome a lot of things working as a collaborative city.
You think you're an optimist?
Oh yeah. I think being a mayor of San Francisco, you have to be an optimist because we do welcome that criticism, but we also want to find solutions, and we want people to believe that that we are in fact doing the kinds of things that will get us more successful. But more people have to be part of that. Today, because we have such a strong, positive economy, I've got that inequality I've got to deal with. I got to have a lot more people believe that the jobs are for them as well, and we're making headway there. The social service programs for people are there because we have strong funding. We can talk a lot about helping each other out a lot more these days than we did maybe during the recession.
Right. So a booming economy also helps those at other ends of the economic spectrum.
If you use the leadership in the right way, and we're trying our best to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, and please come back anytime you have an open invitation.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Edwin M. Lee, Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco. I'm David Perry. Thanks for watching 10% every week. We'll see you again soon.